So next I would like to introduce our second featured reader of the evening. So yeah, it brings me great pleasure to introduce Robert Gluck. Bob is the author of 9 books of poetry and fiction, including 2 novels, Margery, Kempe, and Jack the Modernist, and a collection of stories, Denny Smith. He was a founding member of New Narrative, a literary school that originated in San Francisco. His work is included in many anthologies, such as the Faber book of gay short fiction, the Norton Anthology of World Literature, and Lust for Life, on the Writings of Kathy Acker. He prefaced artist Frank Moore's Between Life and Death and edited, with Camille Roy, Mary Berger, and Gail Scott, the anthology Biting the Error, Writers Explore Narrative. His critical articles appeared in The Village Voice, the London Times Literary Supplement, Artforum International, and the Review of Contemporary Fiction. Gluck was co-director of Small Press Traffic Literary Center, associate editor at Lapis Press, and director of the Poetry Center at San Francisco State, where he is professor of creative writing. In 2013, Ithuriel's Spear republished his first book of stories, Elements, and in 2016, Semiotext will publish Communal Nude, collected essays. He lives in Malmö, Sweden, and high on a hill in San Francisco. So please join me in welcoming Bob Gluck.
Thank you very much. Thanks for inviting me. I'm going to read 2 extremely short poems and then a chapter from, I guess, a novel. I guess that's what it is. The first is called Phantom Objectivity. When I have done the worst I can, my cheese becomes a little god. Thumbtack and acorn, sawdust and shame, the little things of house and home. When I have done the worst I can, my little cub becomes a ghost. 2 white horses draw its hearse. And here's a prayer. Dear Lord, show me the way. Take my heart and throw it away. Lord, take my heart and throw it out. Lord, throw my heart way out. So let's skip a little bit. So for quite a long time I've been working on, I guess I would say my version of an AIDS memoir. And it's also a novel. Anything is a novel, according to me. Like a haiku could be a novel. And it's about my partner, my lover, when I was in my 20s, in the 70s. So that was a long decade, and also one's 20s is a very long decade. So we became, well, whatever we did, and then Ed became just part of my family. The book is called About Ed. He was a great dreamer. It's not in this part, but part of my work for this book was reading all of his dreams, about 30 years of dreams. And one part of the book will be a fantasia of his dreaming. He would wake up in the morning and just say his dream, and then he would say the dream before that, and before that, back into the night. He has such access to his unconscious. And he was an artist. His whole name is Ed Sugai. You could find him. So I think that's it. He has been diagnosed and is getting ill. This is about 1990, and he will die in 1994. This is called Ed in the Movies, and it begins the second part of the book. There are only 3 parts. So, 7 on a warm June evening. The glossy light is full, the shadows are mild. Little brown birds make thin music, weak metallic trills. I'm walking through Ed's garden to his front door. It's overgrown and orderly, the smell of damp earth and heavy roses. There are fronds and branches to duck, red and green marble-sized apples growing out of their flowers on espalier trees. Something in pots, and the brugmansia, night-scented trumpets, sweet and sinister. I climb the wooden steps, the porch light is already on, I'm empty-handed. No, I hold the string of a white pastry box heavy with 2 lemon tarts and 2 chocolate eclairs that satisfy my greed under the pretense of fattening Ed up. I'll probably eat 1 bite. I feel sleepy and itchy as though some emotional demand will be made. And what will I do then? I sense his death behind the door. I don't need to knock, he buzzed me at the gate. The door swings open, he's very animated. Would you rather see me lifeless, he mocks. I hold up the pastry box and we both moan with satisfaction. Death is too serious for us. I hug Ed and I want to say I love you, but I choke on the words as though I'm lying. I'm not. I smell the Japanese half of Ed's childhood, soy and ginger. He intends to perfect a recipe for barbecue short ribs as he did for lemon bunt cake and sushi rice. It's Tuesday, my night to cook, an ongoing joke of self-interest. I contribute to Ed's welfare by eating complicated meals involving the stove, the oven, and the microwave that take Ed all day to prepare. The table is set, the food is a picture, roasted pig. I start chewing before it is served, imagining fat. I can't get enough of the salty, burnt sugar succulence. We dissect the flavors, more rice vinegar, sugar. Sophie, a small gray and brown tabby with a vexed expression, heedlessly scrolls against my shoes, then tries to burrow into my armpits, then vanishes. Ed pokes the meat with his chopsticks, takes a few bites of rice, praises himself for eating as much as he did. When we lived together, he could warm up to dinner with a double bag of potato chips. His voice is strong, but the air is seeping out of his posture. He's down to 120 and wears a disorganized expression. He brings me up to date on the daily horrors. He has neuropathy, the nerves along the soles of his feet strum like electric guitars. Some fungus looks like fur in his throat. He started a new med. Dr. Owen said if the new drug causes pain in his muscles, it means they are disintegrating, so his body started pulling apart like taffy as the doctor spoke. Owen added that if Ed felt pain in his liver, he should call him at once. Ed tossed and turned all night, a finger jabbing him there. I confess I don't pay much attention to these sagas, which are, like his blathering when we were together, tedious and appalling. I hear myself babble the same stupid good advice I bestowed on Ed 6 years ago, and I hear my mother's voice in mine, calming, distancing. Ed's days are obviously precious, but also lonely, threadbare, and twisted by fear. What do I have to say? 1990 is still the 80s. I feel so intensely that the party is happening elsewhere you could call my distraction a disease. That is, I feel like I'm reading a bad translation with the knowledge that a better one exists. Meanwhile, Ed sustains losses, giving up job, movies, travel, and increasing nakedness before death. Last winter, under hideous buzzing lights, Owen told Ed he had only a few months left. Ed went home and planted 130 tulip bulbs. He gardens on that scale. When he worked at the park, he mentioned one day he bonsaied 200 chrysanthemums for Easter. My own life does not seem to apply, and resists being shaped into anecdotes. Striving seems vulgar. Ed was flattened by the buzzing lights. I'm bloated and wan. I've eaten too much fat. While Ed talks, I actually dream for a few seconds. I can't find my pen, and when I do, It's on the kitchen table laid out with fork and spoon. Eating words and writing dinner. My dream sees me this way. What am I leaving out? I remind myself to tape some conversations with Ed. Is that too gruesome? Half asleep, I brew strawberry tea for Ed and black tea for myself in the blue and white spongeware mugs that belonged to Ed and me when we were lovers. I'm almost taking them down from my own cupboard. The clear flavor of the tea is so welcome that some of me goes into it. Ed opens a window. I'm surprised by his initiative because I expect nothing from anyone. He actually does eat his share of the pastry, which is a satisfaction. You never cooked like this when we were together, I complained good-naturedly. As though explaining, Ed says, remember Howard, who lived next door? That greasy little guy who always wore the same sports coat? I'm surprised Ed knows his name. We had sex. He had just finished eating a can of sardines. Ed exhales to show the sardines swarming in Howard's breath. I'm laughing and stung by this 18-year-old infidelity. I feel it more deeply because I'm single again. Denny and I broke up 2 years ago and my insecurity has new life. When I think of him, I experience my only moments of hope. How to extinguish the useless surges? My love for Ed is realer than I know, or my self-love. I thought my love for Ed was sentimental and fake because I did not think Ed was worthy. What a joke. Or because I could not love someone who was almost comically selfish, who was not successful, who had so little irony, who had so little logic. I attributed intention to his beauty because it had power over me. The action of the disease makes Ed's body attractive to me again. I remember the tenderness of snuggling in bed, soft cotton t-shirt and naked below, like 8-year-olds with boners. The cotton erotic, the hot and cold of train stations, a mix of directions. Ed replies with a look. What do you see? The face that detained me for so many years, galaxies. Why is Ed telling me about Howard? Maybe he's saying that his agenda was not confined to beauty and safety. I used Ed to experience risk, as I do in this story. The rough desires passed around at night by guys in a park or an alley. I'll bet Howard is where Ed discovered rimming. One morning he seemed to know all about it. What a surprise that was. Pleasure hidden like treasure in that scary place. I hid my face in simple justice of representation, and my body made noises that meant it had instincts I'd never considered, like a school of salmon migrating up my butt. These carnal updates from Ed and his now aged partners give our marriage a weird posthumous life. Since we are on the subject, I remind Ed of an evening 15 years earlier when I cooked an elaborate birthday dinner for him. He turned up around midnight, explaining without remorse that he had been patiently guiding into bed a straight friend he was liberating. Having a reason doesn't mean anything, I cried. I blinked like a flustered professor and my body stuttered. Ed laughed in alarm and mimicked my frantic gesture. Then he offered, "You're just a victim of circumstance." Ed laughs and says, "Well, weren't you?" He places a buttery crumb on a desiccated lip. He tastes, separating the flavors. I ask him if he's painting. He says, "Every morning from my studio, I see a nanny push a buggy up a hill. I think she's Nicaraguan. She looks really young. She puts the brake on the buggy, climbs a long set of stairs, unlocks the door, and then goes down for the baby. That buggy points right down the hill, and it's held in place by a thin piece of aluminum. Every day I expect that baby to go flying down the street into traffic." We share an expression of horror. Ed lives on a very steep hill down which the buggy already careens. I say, somebody has to tell that woman. Ed solemnly agrees. One sentence could save that child's life. But Ed, why don't you tell her? I feel a surge of relief. Finally, I can save someone's life. All you have to do is walk across the street and tell her. It's so easy, accomplished by the virtue of my directive. But Ed has a question. You think I should tell her? Certainly, tomorrow morning. Ed's head falls forward, his eyes pop, and his jaw drops in amazement. Once I thought that was gay body language, but then I learned it's Japanese. Do you know how sick I am? He's thinking, why should all of civilization rise up to protect that stupid baby? In self-defense, I think, you are well enough to cook dinner, to paint, to dig in your garden. You could do it, it's your responsibility. As a neighbor, Ed, you still go out all the time. I blanch at the word still. Ed's really angry. I'm a whirlwind in his head. The baby I can't save will not allow me the relief of saving some other life. His face is rigid and his mouth works on its own. I am not responsible for that baby. Don't I have enough to worry about? I don't know that baby. I don't know those people. I'm trying to stay alive. I grin in desolation. It is slightly revolting. I remember when that jaw worked against me, a perpetual motion machine of amazing insult. A face too animated, the smashed furniture. The wonder I felt when his fury jumped a quantum level, beyond caring, heedless. His thin body or anything else could be thrown into the blaze. I know when I'm licked. Giving up is hard work. The other baby must live or die without us. The buggy plummets and I lack the willpower to alter its course. I picture Ed by his window, the witness of this drama, which inspires no call to action. Like most of the world, I watch TV to be somewhere else without exerting myself. Exertion is really the only way to go somewhere else, so dissatisfaction builds up. It's hard not to be bitter overall, as though I'd actually seen all those daytime talk shows. The entire message of TV is that life is not fair, more daydream than night dream, yet the victim has his faults. Not so with Ed. When we were together, we watched TV with joy. In the early 70s, a cousin took pity on us and bought us a little black and white Zenith. We watched it late into the night in Ed's studio. Ed painted and I kept him company. I'm describing hours of perfect contentment. We liked Fred Astaire and musicals in general, but horror movies were even more histrionic. Ed and I felt delectation for these images of mayhem. In Ed's bedroom, light is a translucent rectangle, even though it's almost 9. The white glass arrests dappled shadows. Ed lies under the heavy indigo blanket, wasting. I lie on top, succulent. I'm happy to be lying down and feel perfectly relaxed on Daniel's side of the bed. The epidemic leads some people into a deeper engagement with the world. Denny became a science writer for AIDS Treatment News, and Loring joined Grand Fury. A sickness is like a mystery with its heroes and villains. I drift from my bedroom to Ed's bedroom, where light falls through translucent glass in a certain way. Above us, the screen doles out images that we love. The pre-World War I unknown lurches basso profundo through shadows and dry ice. The supersized zoo of spiders, locusts, snakes, ants, and lizards climbs out of the squashed air of the 50s desert. Ed and I love bad horror films for the lyricism of their failed effects. We must be among the few to have twice seen Kuru-Ku, Beast of the Amazon, a movie that couldn't afford a visible monster or even gore. Branches twitch on the jungle trail, a mic slides into view. The victim screams from off-screen. Its very artificiality makes Kuru-Ku a convincing exploration of the afterlife, like a church service. Tonight we watch a Mario Bava film in which moist decomposition replaces the genre's earlier effects, as though a horror of decay is more germane to the present. It's weird to be watching corpses rock back and forth in their own putrescence while lying next to Ed. The monster shows the world what she is. She throws open her robe with a triumphant expression to reveal a red chest cavity packed with roiling white maggots. Because of this image, I don't look Ed in the eye, as though I'd accidentally seen something too personal. What does he make of the skeletons with rags of flesh? I am the only one who can ask him this question, so I do. He rolls his head on the pillow and reminds me in a mild voice that he will be cremated, and that decay is not the same thing as death. He says, "My death is an emptiness that I can't fill." I am relieved, but why? We both know Ed will soon be reduced to ash. He's dying in stop action, like a good makeup job. The chaotic expression, the skeletal jeer, the pumpkin head wobbling with bon vivance, the broomstick neck, the pinched nose, the eyebrows pulled back, the eyes starved and hurt. Monsters rise up while Ed and I sink into the pillows. But horror movies are actually comedies because death is reversible. Or it's a consummation. The one taken by the monster experiences the full extent of his death. In his last scream, the victim faces the monster and dredges horror to the limit. Like a sexual consummation, he groans from the deepest place where his body, the world, begins. Thank you.